My name is Yinka, and this is my story of resilience. We moved to Canada from the US after living there for a year, but it was never meant to be home. Canada was. We landed by road, passed through London, Ontario, and with no definite roadmap, we decided to stay. A small motel became the birthplace of our new life. Because of my experiences in social services, I knew how to access newcomer resources such as furniture, utensils, and support programs, but many don't. The first month taught me networking is everything. By pure serendipity, I handed out our resumes at a real estate office. Days later, I got my first job as the owner's personal assistant. Within a year, I was working for the Ontario Public Service, despite being told newcomers never get government jobs. They created a position for me. But the truth is, systemic barriers exist. Even my husband, once a successful entrepreneur in Nigeria, had to start afresh. Then came a storm. During the pandemic, my husband faced a critical medical crisis requiring multiple surgeries. It was a long road to recovery, one that demanded everything we had. This happened shortly after we moved to Ottawa. For 2 years, I paused my career to become a full-time caregiver while raising our 2 young children, and we leaned on faith, community, and family support across oceans and time zones. I cried when I needed to. I wrote books to clear my mind. We shared only with those who needed to know, as we needed genuine support and not pity. I found healing in giving back, founding the Black Settlement Link, an agency supporting newcomers navigating new paths. If I've learned anything, it's this: no one is coming to hand you the dream. If you want to live happily in a place, you must make it your home. Be open, ask for help, and when things get tough, remember, you are not a tree. You can move, adapt, and grow. This is our story. This is my story, and I'm still becoming.
8 years ago, I walked into Canada 9 months pregnant, displaced and uncertain. I crossed through Roxham Road from New York into Quebec, seeking safety for myself and protection for my unborn child. At that time, I had no idea what the future would hold. I only knew I needed to survive for both of us. Canada welcomed me. It gave me a second chance at life, a place to raise my child without fear, and an opportunity to start again. Those first months were hard. I faced isolation, fear, and deep sadness of leaving everything I knew behind, especially with a newborn child. But each day, I am reminded that I came here to build a better life, and I couldn't afford to give up. I worked really hard to integrate into the Canadian society while raising my child alone. I took a lot of survival jobs. I studied very late at night. I would drive 2 hours to and from school and pushed myself even when I felt invisible. I remember fainting in class once. Today, I am not only a mother and a scholar, but also a founder of an organization built from my personal journey. Canada gave me a second chance, and now I dedicate my life to giving other women the same opportunity to thrive. I am grateful to this country for welcoming me and to every person who believed in me along the way. Thank you.
My name is Rebecca, and this is my story of resilience. I was 4 when my family and I came to Canada as asylum seekers, fleeing civil war in Ethiopia and Eritrea. We settled in Scarborough, moving from shelters to government housing. As a kid, I stood out, Black, African, poor, and new. I didn't fit into the world around me, and I spent years trying to hide my identity, trying to belong. I loved art, but it was never seen as serious. My immigrant mother wanted security, so art was off the table. I struggled in school, working twice as hard in subjects that weren't made for me. But I kept creating in the margins, in science class, math class, everywhere. Even my classmates saw it. They voted me most likely to be the next Van Gogh. Eventually, I landed in the corporate world, advertising, marketing, big titles, big companies, even Google. But the higher I climbed, the emptier I felt. I was succeeding, but I was silencing myself. Until I broke. The pandemic pushed me into a full-blown mental health crisis. And in the rubble of that breakdown, I finally found my truth. I am an artist. Leaving corporate was my biggest act of freedom. Now I spend my days creating, consulting with purpose-driven organizations, and slowly learning what it means to choose myself every day. Freedom, I have learned, isn't loud, it is quiet. It is art, it is rest. It is saying yes to yourself before anyone else.
My name is Bologi Stephen, and this is my story of resilience. Relocating wasn't always the plan, but my husband and I felt a nudge. After months of uncertainty in the Canadian immigration pool, I moved alone to the US for grad school, as I no longer wanted to put my education on hold pending immigration. Unfortunately, due to visa issues, I had to leave behind my husband and almost 2-year-old son. Then unexpectedly, a draw came through for Canada, just days before my language test results were due to expire. We submitted everything across 2 continents in under 1 week. Not an easy feat, I tell you. We landed in Canada in October 2023. I was pregnant, sick, and overwhelmed. There were times I could barely walk, and my symptoms didn't get so much better as the pregnancy progressed. My husband, job hunting for 8 months, cared for me, our toddler, while applying to over 20 roles a day. We stayed with family, 5 people in a 1-bedroom. It was tough. There were nights I simply cried out of exhaustion. As we waited for jobs and daycare, the rejection emails piled up. And then, we lost my father-in-law and some other people close to us. Grieving, far from family, pregnant, and without a job, it was just too much. But I leaned into my faith, into journaling, and into my small but strong support system that I had, both here and back home. I reminded myself, my body was built for this. I can carry this. Eventually, my husband got a job. I gave birth through C-section. But my mother's visa was denied, and so we were left alone, recovering from a major surgery, taking care of a newborn, no childcare, and an energetic 3-year-old son. Yet here I am, still standing, still becoming, and rediscovering myself, my strength, my long-time love for storytelling and media. I am navigating a new career transition again, and I am loving the new world of communications and the power of voice. So if you're in it right now, just know this, it is a season. And like I always say, the best thing about seasons, they pass. And so this too shall pass. Enjoy your current support system and build new ones where you need to. Grieve, cry if you need to, but never forget, you were made for this. Your journey matters. Your story is strong. And I know that you are resilient.
My name is Diana Ade, and this is my story of resilience. I moved to Canada with my 3-year-old daughter and nothing else. No family, no job offer, just an email saying I could settle here. It was winter. I was alone. We bounced between Airbnbs until I found my footing. And even then, I was far from stable. I started job hunting with no local connections, just grit. I built my LinkedIn profile, reached out to strangers, and kept applying. Within those first 2 years, I also had to study French as a second language to expand my opportunities. My first opportunity was a contract role that turned permanent in less than 2 months. I seized every chance. earning 7 certifications in just 2.5 years, even after failing twice. But behind every professional milestone was a deeper battle. I'm a single mother. My daughter was diagnosed with autism, and navigating the school system as an immigrant parent was a fight. One private school refused to accommodate her, even though I paid tuition. I had to transfer her, advocate fiercely, and apply for funding, which I'm still waiting to receive. Still, I didn't quit. I took on leadership roles at work. I started volunteering. I became a school bus driver to pay the bills before landing my dream remote tech job. I launched a podcast, The Daring Mom, to inspire others like me. I also co-founded Sankofa Cultural Troupe, an Ottawa-based ensemble that showcases Ghanaian music, dance, and drama to preserve our African traditions and inspire generations. Today, I'm a PhD student in software engineering, one of the few women and the only Black woman in my program. I'm also pursuing my professional engineering license. I juggle work, school, parenting, business, and community. But I've learned that resilience isn't about being unshaken. It's about standing again and again, even in the storm. So to every immigrant mother out there, you are not alone. Keep daring.
My name is Jovita Akahome, and this is my story of resilience. I arrived in Canada as a student in the fall of 2013. I was all alone with my dreams and expectations. Although I was many miles away from home, I was determined to find a community here and become a valuable member of it. I had set my mind to study visual arts. You see, creating art is my gift. After graduating from the University of Ottawa in the spring of 2018, I began to doubt that creating art was the path for me. It was challenging for me to earn a living from it. So I took a job as a banking customer service representative, but at night, my dreams kept me awake and creating art. In 2020, the global pandemic took the world by storm, disrupting lives, economies, and communities. Amidst all this, the one thing that I found profoundly uniting and positively impactful was art. I understood how this moment was a great opportunity to put my skills to use, not just for me and my mental health, but for the community around me. I created new work that alluded to how people are dealing with the pandemic, and my audience took great comfort from it. Since then, I have built a large audience that appreciates my work in virtual and physical spaces. I'm happy that I have continued to pursue my dreams, especially after seeing the positive impact it has had. I'm grateful for the experiences that have set me firmly on this course of art making.
My name is Chineye, and this is my story of resilience. I came to Canada in July 2023 with my husband and 3 children, 2 boys and a daughter with special needs. I arrived full of hope, but nothing could have prepared me for how hard it would be. Back home in Nigeria, I was an art teacher for 15 years, a practicing artist, and a certified art therapist. Life was stable. We had help. My daughter had access to therapy and support. But when we arrived in Prince Edward Island, everything changed. Suddenly, we couldn't access the support she needed because we weren't permanent residents. I watched her regress before my eyes, losing the progress we fought so hard for. But I refused to give up. I became her therapist, her advocate. I taught the school how to work with her. I fought for her to get a speech pathologist and an educational assistant. I cried, I prayed, and I pushed forward. In the middle of this storm, I kept creating. Art is who I am. In my first year in Canada, I hosted my first solo exhibition. I was awarded Best Mom of the Year by an immigrant support organization. I received a government grant to create art on gender-based violence. And despite the odds, I've continued my master's in education with distinction in every course. Through it all, I've learned that self-pity is dangerous. I chose not to let my skin color, my immigration status, or my daughter's diagnosis limit me. I'm an artist, I am a mother, I am a fighter, and this is just the beginning.
My name is Amsa, and this is my story of hope. I first came to Canada mainly because of a father's guilt. My other siblings had already gone to school outside of the country, and being Nigerian, your qualifications make you stand out. And there I was already working. I was working as a journalist already. I seemed settled and doing very well at work, but my dad felt like it wasn't enough, and he wanted me to do more than what I was doing, which again, father's love. And so I found myself in Canada at Fanshawe studying broadcast journalism. And then came the part of finding a job. But I had already gone into that defeated because there was a passing comment that was made towards me saying, oh, my name and accent would already kind of cancel me off of any type of applications that I try, especially with the media and all. And that had already killed the zeal for looking for a job and all of that here in Canada. And unfortunately for me, I think I carried that defeat back home when I went back to more or less start off my life again back home. But before I could even finally settle down, I came back to Canada and restarted my life all over again. And at that point in time, I came as a visitor, then was able to find a work permit. Then I was now able to start looking for jobs, and everything that I found myself doing was just not what I wanted to do. My heart was not in any of those things. And so I ran back to the one thing that I had always held on to, even as a kid, and that was art. And because I had that chance, that opportunity, the freedom, the time, even despite the fact that I was job searching, I dove in full body into my art, and it's been a long ride. I wouldn't sit and say it was easy and it was fun going. There were many ups and downs, many hills and valleys. But the one thing I know about my whole experience was that every day there was some form of hope, because I was doing something that I loved, because I was doing something that felt so true to me. And that calling was everything that I needed, because it kept me going. It kept me interested in many things. It kept depression far, far away from me. It kept the cold. It made the cold easier to bear, especially during the winter, because I had my art. It took me far, and I was able to express myself. I was able to make friends, and I was able to actually create a family here for myself, especially here in London. And it's still going. It's hope that keeps the door open, in spite of everything else that is going on with the economy, with the world, the tragedies that are just all over the place. It's that hope is that thing that keeps the lights going for me, physically, financially, emotionally, mentally, in every way. And I would not change that for the world. And so that is my story of hope. And I hope this little bit of it has given you some type of hope as well.
15 years ago, I arrived in Canada with tears in my eyes, a tight heart, but a small flame of hope burning inside me. We had just left friends, our loved ones, our routine, our familiar world. That day, the sky was unexpectedly bright. A soft light seemed to wrap our new beginning, whispering, everything will be okay. Of course, I was afraid of not finding my place, of not understanding this new country, of losing my cultural roots. But what I didn't know was that this journey would actually bring me closer to myself. My name is Felicity Wilu Mbyoki Makaba, but many know me as Vitabila the artist. I was born in Belgium, raised in Kinshasa, studied in France, and it is here in Canada that I truly learned how to reinvent myself. With a background in economics, I never imagined that one day I would hold a paintbrush with as much passion as I once held numbers. In 2010, shortly after our arrival, I began painting. First to feel the silence, the loneliness, the aches, but soon I realized it was also a way to tell stories, to celebrate, to heal. In 2011, I exhibit my first painting in Montreal. I haven't stopped since. Today, my artwork travel just like I do. They speak of love, joy, resilience. They carry the colors of my story and the weight of my Congolese heritage. My journey, like my heart, is layered, vibrant, and deeply rooted. I didn't integrate my blending in. I did so by bringing my own colors to the canvas of this new life. Today, I know that immigration is not a rupture, it's a bridge, a transition, a fertile space where something truly new can be born.
When I arrived in Canada in 2019, August, I didn't feel like starting a new chapter was what I wanted to do. I felt more like building a new blueprint was the way to go for me. Having a background in urban and regional planning, plus a deep passion for technology, which had become my career path when I graduated university, plus an unshakable belief in the power of purpose-driven work, I made I would say, bold transition from my leadership roles in Nigeria's tech landscape to a new and unfamiliar landscape here in Canada. Like many immigrants, I faced the uphill battles of credential recognition, cultural adaptation, and I would say the quiet, sometimes isolating journey of starting over. But I remember that where others saw limitations, I saw leverage. I immersed myself in local opportunities around me, first as a public sector technology project manager. Then I went on to become a civic leader in the Halifax tech ecosystem where I reside. Now, my resilience wasn't just in finding work. It was more about creating impact. I went ahead to become the first Halifax city lead for women in AI. And in that spot, I championed responsible AI practices, inclusion in technology, and all of that. I didn't wait for permission. I built platforms. All right. And I went ahead to start my consulting practice, democratizing AI education, reaching underserved communities, and offering accessible training in data science, AI ethics, and AI governance. Well, despite challenges from adjusting a new culture to balancing motherhood, entrepreneurship, and community leadership, I never lost sight of my mission to ensure that technology doesn't just leave anyone behind. I went ahead to become a LinkedIn top AI voice. I advised on global AI policy, collaborated with UNESCO, worked on Senegal's national AI strategy, and have presently stood on international stages advocating for equity in AI governance. I would say for me, it's more of my unwavering commitment to lift others as I climb. From rebuilding to reshaping, I would say that my journey has become a masterclass in resilience, in vision, and the quiet power of showing up even when it is hard. Again, for me, immigration is not about starting over. It's about starting forward.
Have you ever felt pressured to be someone you are not, just to belong in a new country? That was my situation when I arrived Canada in 2018. My family made the big leap. We sold our belongings and bought a one-way ticket to Canada. We settled in, got our kids in schools, and started job hunting. After months of no responses, I started hearing stories about employers who would more likely select resumes with English-sounding names over ethnic names, even with similar qualifications and experiences. I did some research online and found reports confirming this bias. Initially, I ignored these stories, but after some rejection letters, I reluctantly accepted that my ethnic-sounding name might be the problem. I updated my job searching profiles with my English-sounding middle name, Catherine. Not long after, the job offers started coming in. I still can't say if it was due to the name change. I picked the best job and resumed work. That was where the real problem started. Colleagues would call Catherine, and I wouldn't recognize they were addressing me. I felt constantly confused and lost. I dreaded introducing myself because I often started with my real name before catching myself. It was incredibly hard bearing one name in my community and another name at work and church. I started feeling like a fraud. This internal conflict affected my performance, and I dreaded going to the job I worked so hard to get. Later that year, I attended a professional conference where I met another immigrant who had experienced a similar situation. She shared how she managed it, and I left that conversation with the conviction to revert to my real name and start all over again. Within months, I landed a new job, and since then I've gotten several opportunities, recognitions, and awards in Canada, all with my authentic, ethnic-sounding name. My journey taught me a vital lesson in resilience. Focus on yourself and the value you bring. Stay true to who you are. If you are fire, never allow yourself to be called a spark. Never ever throw away your identity. For new immigrants facing job search delays, be clear on your goals, stay true to yourself, and focus on the immense value you bring. Your authentic self is your greatest strength.
5 years ago, on a freezing February night, I arrived in Canada with my family. We left behind everything we knew, not to start from scratch, but to start from experience. I had built a thriving garment manufacturing business, designing couture wedding gowns and telling stories through fabric and stitch. But on that night, I stepped into a story I couldn't control. 3 weeks after landing in London, Ontario, I began job hunting. Then the world shut down. The lockdown stretched for 2 years. Building a community felt impossible. Finding a job felt like I was chasing air. It took me 6 months to find my first job. 6 months of questioning my worth, my identity. I had gone from entrepreneur to job seeker overnight. In that uncertainty, I turned to something that had always been mine: art. Art became more than creativity. It became my lifeline. I painted to process loss, to find my voice, to remember who I was. And through every brushstroke, I found healing and purpose. That journey led me to my first Canadian job, producing PPE for frontline workers during the pandemic, creating jobs for other immigrants during a time of crisis, being named the Face of London in 2021 for my contributions to the City of London, Ontario through business and art, raising over $250,000 for the Canadian Cancer Society for breast cancer research, having my artwork featured at Amazon fulfillment centers across Canada for Black History Month, and becoming a Canadian citizen. Today, I stand as an artist, a cultural storyteller, and a proud Nigerian Canadian. My art carries the threads of identity, resilience, and hope. My name is Taiwo Pampa, and this is my story of resilience.